Insulation!
One of the questions we often get is spray foam versus fiberglass. Which one should you choose?
That's right, insulation may not be the flashiest part of anyone's home, but it's super important for both comfort and energy efficiency. We're going to break down the pros and cons of both batt and spray foam insulation. Talk about costs here on Long Island in New York, energy efficiency, and which projects are best for both options. Let's dive right in.
Let's start with the old classic, fiberglass insulation. This is the fluffy pink or yellow stuff you've seen in between the framing in your walls. It usually comes in batts, those blanket-like rolls, or as a loose fill. We've installed tons of fiberglass over the years.
Now let's go over the pros when it comes to fiberglass insulation. First is affordability. Fiberglass is typically the less expensive option up front. It's budget-friendly for homeowners, which is why it's been so popular over the last decades.
Next is ease of installation. Fiberglass is pretty easy to install. You simply cut the batts to fit in between your studs or joists. Even handy DIYers can install this product themselves. There is no fancy equipment needed.
Next is that fiberglass is a decent insulator. It provides a decent R value, which is your insulation value for the cost. It's about R3 per inch for standard batts. It helps keep your home warm in the winter and cool in the summer when it's installed properly.
Lastly, here's some other benefits. Fiberglass is naturally non-combustible since it's glass, and it will also add a little bit of sound dampening, which can help muffle noise between rooms. So it's not only thermal insulation, but also acoustic as well.
And now, what about the downsides? Here are the cons when it comes to fiberglass insulation. First is that it's a lower R value and thickness. Fiberglass has a lower R value per inch when compared to spray foam insulation. To meet higher insulation values, you may need very thick batts or multiple layers. In older homes with 2x4 walls, you're limited in R value, which is usually about R13, whereas spray foam could pack more insulation and an R value that's much higher in a smaller space.
Next, fiberglass provides no air seal. Draft can sneak in through cracks or gaps in the batts. That means if your home is not tightly sealed, fiberglass alone may not prevent cold air from seeping in or air conditioning from seeping out. You will often need to add additional vapor barriers or air sealing with fiberglass materials.
The next con we have is moisture issues. If fiberglass gets wet, its performance drops. It can absorb moisture, get soggy, or even develop mold if it stays damp. For example, if it's humid in your basement or if there's a roof leak in the attic, wet fiberglass does not insulate well, and you may even need to replace it.
Lastly, we've got installation gaps. We've seen plenty of cases where fiberglass was poorly fitted. Gaps or compression in the product can reduce its effectiveness. Plus, handling it without the proper protection will make you extremely itchy. So it's effective when it's done right, but it is far less forgiving of installation errors.
In short, fiberglass is tried and true and less expensive, but it works best when your home is already fairly airtight or in areas where you can layer it on thick. It's great for attics or walls on a budget, but you'll want to be sure to seal up any drafts and make sure you keep it dry.
Now, let's talk about spray foam insulation, the newer player on the block. This is the stuff where we spray a liquid polyurethane foam that will then expand and harden into an insulating layer. This product is a game changer for insulating homes.
Now let's talk about the pros when it comes to spray foam insulation. First, we have a higher R value and performance. Spray foam has a higher R value per inch than fiberglass, especially the closed cell type, which can be up to R6 or R7 per inch, roughly double than a fiberglass bat. This means you get more insulation in a thinner layer. Your home stays warmer in the winter and cooler in the summer with very little thickness. In tight spaces like a cathedral ceiling or maybe a thin wall, foam can reach the required R value where fiberglass might fall short.
Next, we've got air sealing. One huge advantage with spray foam is that it will act as an insulator, but also an air sealant. When sprayed into walls or rafters, it will expand and fill every little gap or crack. Once it hardens, it's completely airtight. No drafts are getting through that. This alone can eliminate many of the air leaks that plague homes that are solely insulated with fiberglass.
Next, we have its moisture barrier and durability. Closed-cell spray foam is water resistant and can act as a vapor barrier. It will not absorb water like fiberglass will. This is great in damp areas like basements or crawl spaces or coastal homes. It also doesn't sag or settle over time. Once it's in place, it stays for the life of the home. Spray foam also adds some structural rigidity to the home, and pests are much less attracted to it, whereas some pests even make nests in fiberglass.
The last pro is its energy efficiency. By creating that airtight envelope, spray foam will dramatically reduce heat loss. Homes insulated with spray foam often see much lower heating and cooling bills. We'll talk numbers in a minute, but it's not uncommon for homeowners to see a big difference in comfort and energy use after a spray foam installation.
Of course, spray foam isn't perfect either. Here are some cons of spray foam insulation. First is that it is a much higher upfront cost. The biggest barrier for most people is cost. Spray foam is more expensive than fiberglass insulation, both in its installation and material costs. You are paying for that performance. We'll give some costs shortly. This is an investment that hopefully pays you back over time with its energy savings. But the initial quote can be much higher than fiberglass.
Next, it requires a professional installation. Spray foam is not a DIY project for most homeowners. It will require a professional installation with specialized equipment and numerous safety precautions because of the fumes during application. Installers wear full body protective gear, and you will also need to vacate the home during the installation and slightly after the installation. All of this will add to the cost. So, unlike fiberglass bats, you can't just pick it up at your local box store and install it over the weekend.
And lastly, other considerations when it comes to spray foam. Once spray foam is in your walls and applied, it is solid, which is great until someone needs to run some new wiring or plumbing through those walls. Then it's much tougher to work through rather than just moving over a bat. Also, not every situation needs that uber seal. In some older homes, too much sealing without ventilation can trap moisture. So it should be part of a well-designed plan for a home. But these are really minor trade-offs given the performance of spray foam.
So spray foam is kind of the premium option. You will pay more, but you're also getting a high performance result. Excellent insulation, air sealing, and moisture resistance all in one.
Now let's talk about costs, because that's a major factor when considering which insulation to go with. Keep in mind that costs can vary based on the size of your home and the complexity of the job. But here's some general cost ideas. For a typical 2,000 square foot home, if you were to do all of the walls and all of the ceilings in batt fiberglass insulation, that might cost somewhere between $4,000 and $6,000. Spray foam, on the other hand, for the same exact 2,000 square foot home could be somewhere between $15,000 and $20,000. So spray foam can be anywhere from 3 to 4 times more than fiberglass when it comes to this example. Now let's take a larger example. Let's say we have a 4,000 square foot home and we're going to insulate it with fiberglass batts, all of the walls and all of the ceilings. You'd be looking at somewhere between $10,000 and $12,000. whereas spray foam would be closer to $35,000 or $40,000. As you can see, the gap gets pretty wide when we start talking about larger projects.
We know those numbers sound scary, but remember, spray foam usually replaces the need for other air sealing work and can significantly cut down your utility bills. In many cases, homeowners will recoup that investment over the years through their energy savings. Now let's talk about those savings.
Homes with spray foam often see much lower energy bills. How much lower? It does vary, but some studies and our experience has shown some pretty large variables. We've even had clients tell us that their energy bill substantially reduced, sometimes by about 30 to 50% after applying spray foam to their home. That's huge.
In fact, some local sources have even noted that by using spray foam and upgrading your windows, you could potentially reduce your energy bills by 40 to 70%. Of course, that is on the high end and is taking into account multiple other improvements. Every home is different, but no matter how you cut it, spray foam will tighten things up. And in turn, your furnace and air conditioning units will not have to work as hard. Over time, those monthly savings will add up. And don't forget, on Long Island especially, we have some pretty extreme seasons. Cold winters and hot and humid summers. And on top of that, our energy costs are excessively high. So, investing in better insulation can really pay off both in comfort and your wallet.
Meanwhile, fiberglass will still insulate well per dollar spent, but you might not see as dramatic of a change in your energy bill, especially if your house has a lot of air leakage. You might need to pair fiberglass with really good air sealing. For example, maybe caulking cracks or sealing ducts in order to approach the performance or anything remotely close to spray foam. So it's a good trade-off when it comes to lower upfront costs versus long-time savings.
So, which projects or homes are best for fiberglass and which are best for spray foam? It will often come down to budget, project scope, and your overall goals.
First, we have new construction or gut renovation. If you're building a new home or opening all of the walls in your house, spray foam can be the best option if your budget allows for it. It's easiest to install at this stage before the drywall goes up on the walls. And you can effectively create a tightly built envelope from the start. For instance, we often use closed cell spray foam in the walls for a high R value and open cell spray foam in the roof rafters. This will give the new house excellent energy performance from day one. Many new homes here on Long Island opt to use spray foam to meet the strict energy codes and maximize efficiency.
Next up is existing homes or retrofits. If you're improving an existing home without tearing open every wall, fiberglass insulation will typically be the more practical option. It's cost effective and less intrusive. For example, if your attic isn't well insulated, rolling out fiberglass bats or blowing in insulation can be a really quick win. Similarly, if you're renovating one room or only opening a few walls, you can very easily put fiberglass bats within those cavities. Spray foam in an existing home will typically require more prep and professional work. For example, we may have to temporarily remove siding or drywall so we can spray inside the walls, or at the very least spray the attic or crawl space areas. But if you're on a tight budget or you only need a small upgrade, fiberglass insulation makes way more sense.
Now we have attics and crawl spaces. These are interesting areas. In an open attic, you really have a choice. You could blow in a thick layer of fiberglass on the attic floor, which is cost effective and it achieves a high R value. This works well if you don't need the attic space for any sort of storage or living area, and don't mind it being vented, which means cold in the winter and hot in the summer when you're above that insulation. On the other hand, if you have HVAC equipment or you want that area for some storage, you might want to consider spray foam under the roof decks. We do spray foam in many attics to seal any penetrations and eliminate any drafts. It turns the attic into an insulated part of the home, which helps with your energy efficiency. In damp crawl spaces or basements, we absolutely love closed cell spray foam. It both insulates and acts as a moisture barrier on those cool, often damp foundation walls. Fiberglass would not be advisable in a wet or damp crawl space. It'll just get soggy, whereas foam will thrive.
Lastly, we've got rooms with special needs. If you have a cathedral ceiling, a bonus room, or a master suite above a garage, spray foam is often the best choice to pack lots of R value into an extremely tight space. Similarly, at rim joists, which is the perimeter of your floor framing, a couple inches of spray foam seals and insulates those little gaps far better than stuffing fiberglass ever could. For soundproofing interior walls, dense fiberglass bats can be handy. Spray foam will also reduce the sound a bit, but fiberglass or rock wool is more often used in home theaters or any other room that requires sound dampening. So obviously each one has its niche.
We also have a lot of customers that opt for more of a hybrid approach. For example, using fiberglass or mineral wool in many of the walls in order to save cost, and then using spray foam in critical areas like the attic, band joists, or above porches, places that are prone to moisture or air leakage. This way, you can balance both performance and budget.
Overall, if your goal is maximum energy efficiency and you're okay with a higher upfront cost, spray foam will always be the winner. It is the top performer in insulating value and air sealing. It's especially good for damp climates. We do live on an island after all. On the flip side, if you have a limited budget or a really straightforward project, fiberglass can do the job and will be more budget friendly. It's tried and true for attics and walls as long as it's installed correctly. And sometimes that's all a project needs.
As Dan said, remember, whichever insulation you choose, proper installation is the key. We always say, a well-insulated fiberglass job can outperform a sloppy spray foam job, and vice versa. So working with pros, like us, is the priority.
So to wrap up, both spray foam and fiberglass can effectively insulate your home. They just have different strengths. Fiberglass is cheaper and easier to put in. Spray foam is more expensive, but gives you a tighter, more efficient home. Think about your goals. If it's just to meet code and save some money now, fiberglass might be fine. But if you're trying to super insulate your home and cut your utility bills, spray foam may be the way to go. And as we said earlier, you could also do some kind of hybrid mix of the two.
We hope this comparison helped clear things up. If you're still not sure which way to go, or maybe you just have some questions, feel free to reach out to us. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss any more of our renovation tips. See you next time.